All right, so how did I start G'd Up University? So this is back in 2015 when I was getting my bachelor's. I was listening to West Coast hip hop, so I was very fond of Snoop, and growing up, I was very fond of Tupac, and so around 2000 was when the East Siders, which was Snoop Dogg's group, had this song called G'd Up, and so it was a very catchy song, very West Coast type feel to it. So I was like, you know what? Let's flip the G and then use it to stand for graduate. So that's what I did. So I don't have the graduation cap, but that was essentially the theme of my grad cap because, when folks graduate, they could put, their own theme, their own twists to their graduation caps that represents them. So I decided to have a silhouette of an individual, kind of like with their arms crossed, looking all cool. And that says something about along the lines of G'd Up. So years later, I decided to use that concept and just name the podcast. And so, or at least the whole G'd Up University brand and name. So I added the G'd Up just because I've seen other podcasts, at least on Instagram, called G'd Up Podcast. I was like, G'd Up and Agreed Up. And then eventually it was like G'd Up Integrate Up University, just to encapsulate and all of the things that we're doing, not limited to the podcast. And so that's how the name came about. And, this really means a lot to me because, I grew up on a lot of hip hop music. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to continue my career the traditional way. I have no passion about being a faculty member because that's what people tend to ask me about. And I'm like, nah, I want to do research, but then I just don't want to do research either. So I decided to do something with something involved with, hip hop and do something cool and fun, but also being my full authentic self throughout the process from point A to point Z. Nothing all trying to be fake, trying to impress a certain crowd of people, just being myself. And so G'd Up University, I feel like really summarizes who I am, and I really enjoy what we've got going on. And so growing up, I grew up in Daly City, California, which is in the Bay Area right next to San Francisco. So just growing up, I was raised with my cousins, no siblings, first generation in college. So education was really major in my family, particularly with my mother and my parents. And so, it all started with purchasing, a set of books, reading to me. And then ever since then, even if I was not passionate about school, I just forced myself into it because I knew it was the key to my future. So ironically, despite where I am today, it didn't start off, like that because I graduated from preschool. And then, first day of kindergarten, I was like, I don't want to go to school anymore. Like, the fuck am I going to school for? But 32 years later, still in school, still my Ph.D. program, but I'm having a time of my life. It means, like I said, it means a lot to my family growing up in a Filipino household. The common stereotype is that we go in the health field. So fuck y'all who keep saying that about us, but we're not all that. I'm not a Jabberwocky either. I might look like one, but I am who I am. So growing up in the Bay, I went through elementary school, John F. Kennedy in Daly City. I don't know if it still exists, but it's a very interesting experience. So I went to public school and then went to private school for a little bit just because I thought I'd get a quality education. But, I have my opinions about that, but it's nothing special. Going to school is going to school. You're getting your education. You're going through the same path as what you do with it. So that's my mentality with whatever I do, but especially when you talk about education. And then shortly after going to private school, which was around middle school time, so around 2003, I moved to Sacramento. And so as it stands, the majority of my life was spent there. And then I eventually went to Sacramento State. So just unfortunately, there was a lot of things between my parents to where my father decided to leave to pursue his own endeavors. And so I felt betrayed, but, it is what it is. But moving forward from that, my mother and I had to short sell the house and move around 4 times prior to me getting my PhD here at UCLA. So it was quite an adventure. For some time, for about 2.5 years, I was unemployed, actively seeking for jobs, thinking that my current resume with my associate's degrees at that time would be sufficient. But, I got fired from retail, and, that was the only experience I had until I went back and started working with college students, starting with the educational program at Sacramento State. And so it was a very unique experience, to say the least. I started off college, straight to college, straight out of high school. And then around just the beginning of my sophomore year, I decided to go back to the community college. And so that's when I got my associate's degrees, and then came back to Sacramento State. And then, started working with EOP from there. And then that's when it all started for me, working in higher education, just looking at all the different issues in higher ed. Both being as a student and being able to work there really opened my eyes to some of the things I've seen. Like, for example, if you're in college, a lot of the times you might ask somebody and they might refer you to another department. And, as for anybody, that'll piss you off. And so working at EOP was what really got me into higher ed. And then eventually I decided, I want to do more than, college advising and working with students within the confines of an office space. So, I decided to get my PhD, applied 2 years in a row. I did get accepted to Indiana University in my the first time, but